Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanandi, Haribo.
Hari Haribo. Thank you very much, Kalakantha Prabhu. And thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining us this evening. On this very wonderful Thursday evening, and it gives me great pleasure and it's a distinct honor and privilege to welcome His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu, speaking to us live from Florida, I believe.
Yes.
Some of you may not have heard of Kalakantha Prabhu. I believe that number is very small. But Kalakantha Prabhu has served for many, many years as the mentor and the president of the Krishna House in Gainesville, which has gained a lot of fame in the success of distribution of prasadam and making young devotees, and giving Krishna consciousness to lots and lots of people. Under his visionary leadership, this Krishna House program has introduced the Krishna conscious lifestyle to hundreds of university students, and many of whom even have taken initiation in the process of bhakti. So Prabhu has been a devotee since 1972 in ISKCON, and he is a wonderful and humble grandfather, initiating spiritual master, and author of several books on Krishna consciousness, which I very highly recommend. I'm just going to see if I can show a couple of those. Okay, so some books including Bhagavad Gita, the Song Divine, the easy to understand version, very nice for distribution. And one of my favorite ones, The Saint Within. So Prabhu was very kind to actually give these books personally to me as a gift earlier this year. I really treasure them. 12 Strategies for Strengthening Your Inner Yogi. Definitely recommended for devotees who want to go within. It's really nice. And this is a classic one, quite a hefty book. A God Who Dances. It's a Krishna for you. So definitely check them out. These books are available. They're published by Torchlight Publishing. I know The God Who Dances is available on Amazon. You can search for them, and I strongly recommend that you get these books. So without wasting any more time, I would like to once again welcome Prabhuji and hand it off to you. Thank you, Kalakantha.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So we have, you can see our audience members. If you turn on your participants list, you can see some of those who have joined.
I'm seeing them. So many nice devotees.
We have His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj also who's joined.
Jai Maharaj.
And
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you very much, Madan Gopal Prabhu, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So tonight I'd like to read a little about Sudama Brahman. And this is an excerpt from one of the books Madan Gopal Prabhu kindly mentioned, which is A God Who Dances. I'm not really an author, I am a plagiarist. I like to take Srila Prabhupada's books and present them as they might sound to us if we understood the original Sanskrit. That's the idea, to try to convert the meter, the mood from the Sanskrit to the English. And I think most of us here are learned devotees. Most of you are experienced devotees, so you're very familiar with these pastimes. So we'll do a little commentary as we go along, but I'd like to share with you, invite you to read along while we go through this beautiful pastime. All right. So in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Maharaj Parikshit directly speaking with Shukadev Goswami. Maharaj Parikshit is also known, of course, as Vishnu Rata, or one who's protected by Vishnu. And throughout the course of the 10th canto, their conversation actually encompasses 25% of Srimad Bhagavatam. Many of the other cantos are recitations of previous conversations as relayed by Shukadev. And in the 10th canto, Shukadev directly speaks from start to finish. So in the course of those 90 chapters from the Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto, Parikshit Maharaj, Vishnu Rata, asks 19 questions. And on occasion, his questions just kind of reflect the ecstasy that he's feeling, even as he's preparing to leave his body. And this chapter begins with such a profound statement of happiness from the student, Vishnu Rata. Said Vishnu Rata, Master, please continue telling me heroic pastimes of the greatest personality. Could anyone who knows life's essence set aside such themes to gratify the senses in a futile, phony dream? True words describing God are, for true ears, the greatest wealth. True hands work just for him. True minds consider nothing else. True eyes see only Krishna, and true heads bow to his feet. True limbs regard the water that has bathed him as most sweet. So Vishnu Rata is asking this after Shukadev has been narrating the pastimes of Lord Balaram for 1 or 2 chapters. So now Parikshit Maharaj is saying, again, could we hear about Krishna directly? So this incites this pastime. Delighted, Shukadev said this: when Krishna was in school, he had a learned friend, Sudama. who became a perfect jewel. This learned, self-controlled young priest enjoyed a simple life, although he lived so plainly he could not maintain his wife. The chaste wife of this underprivileged Brahmin felt distressed because she could not feed him, so she made this meek request. Lord Krishna is so kind and rich. My dear, don't you enjoy a friendship with him dating back to when you both were boys? Lord Krishna loves the Brahmins, and I'm sure he'll gladly give some charity to you, his childhood friend, so you can live. He rules a lavish kingdom. Surely Krishna shares his wealth. If someone loves him, so I've heard, he'll even give himself. Sudama thought, my wife keeps asking, and the time seems right. To visit empty-handed, though, would be so impolite. And so he said, I'll see my friend as you have asked me to. However, I have nothing to give Krishna, dear. Do you? Sudama's wife went begging, filled her palms 4 times with rice, enclosed it in a clean torn cloth and tied it once or twice. This very modest gift in hand, Sudama started out. He thought, will Krishna's soldiers let me in? I have my doubts. In Dwarka, Sudama joined some leading local priests and walked unchallenged past the homes of Krishna's devotees. Approaching Krishna's palace, when he shared with Rukmini, Sudama felt he'd traded his distress for ecstasy. So here, Sudama is manifesting his humble mood, thinking, will Krishna's soldiers even let me in? Will I even be able to pass the gates? This pastime is very popular because it's like an IPO, the best IPO in history. A little rice for all this riches which Sudama will gain. But it's important to note how Sudama's wife was not motivated by anything other than the desire to serve her husband. She was feeling unable to even feed him properly. And so as a result, she's making suggestions that her husband would, in his humility, would not have even thought of himself. So Sudama sets out on this trek. He brings some gift. And here's another beautiful example of Vedic culture. When one goes to visit a friend, one should not go empty-handed. One should always bring some sort of offering. And this is one of the exchanges of love that takes place between devotees. Giving of gifts, receiving of gifts. Taking prasad, accepting prasad, giving prasad. So these loving exchanges exist between Lord Krishna and his very intimate devotees. It's not that God is a loner who's trying to find some friends on Facebook. He has loving relationships. He is endowed with the finest, most beautiful friends. And he loves them so much that, as Sudama's wife mentioned, he'd give everything for himself. He'd even give himself, rather, for his devotees' care and service. So Sudama's wife has a very good idea, and her husband is taking it seriously. In Dwarka, as Krishna sat on Rukmini's fine bed, he then observed Sudama near his palace. Then, without a single word, he went out to embrace his dear old friend, so pure and wise. As ecstasy shot through him, teardrops filled Lord Krishna's eyes. Lord Krishna brought Sudama in, sat him upon the bed, washed both his feet, then sprinkled foot wash on his royal head. The Lord then worshipped his dear friends with ghee lamp and incense. Anointing him with sandal paste and other fragrant scents. As Krishna offered gifts and pleasant words, Queen Rukmini began to fan the honored guest as etiquette decrees. Sudama looked so gaunt and wore such ragged, shabby dress. The residents throughout the palace all began to guess, what pious acts has this unkempt, impoverished Brahmin done? Though others would consider him a beggar to be shunned, the guru of the universe, abandoning his wife, embraces and reveres him like he's known him all his life. This is another beautiful facet of Krishna's pastimes. Especially in Dwarka, we often see all the residents of the palace are kind of doing this gossiping between themselves, wondering what's going on. Like when Aniruddha returned to the palace after a long absence, they were all gossiping. Who is this young man? So again, here they're wondering, how is it that this Brahmin is getting such a reception? He looks like a homeless person, like somebody who is socially rejected. And I'm going to show you a picture now, which is taken from one of Prabhupada's books. Excuse me one second. Yes, so Sudama here is shown as a sannyasi. He's wearing the robes of a renunciate. But in fact, Sudama's dress seems a little inappropriate, and that is from the descriptions in the Bhagavatam, as opposed to this picture. He was actually wearing the dress of a householder, but very ragged and worn, clean, but worn out. And he, of course, looks very thin also. So the Lord is there in his palatial pastimes, palatial setting in Dwarka, receiving him, and his queen is worshiping him. So all the residents wonder at this strange scene. And Krishna is about to make it even more remarkable. Excuse me, I'm not so adept at this, I apologize. While I'm looking here, let me just stop and ask if anyone would like to share any other pastime or any other thoughts about this pastime before we continue. Any other realizations on this first phase of Sudama's trek?
If anyone wants to say something, you can put in the chat box. You can raise your hand using the raise hand feature. It looks like everyone's okay.
All right. Okay, we'll continue then. Thank you. While holding one another's hand.
Sorry, Kamalini she just raised her hand.
Yes, Kamalini, please.
Hold on, let's see. I'm gonna have to unmute her. I have to find her. Is it under Apurva? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Go ahead, Mother Kamalini. You have to unmute yourself. Okay.
Oh, was I muted?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Sudama's wife, I like how said she didn't like to dictate to her husband, but just how she kept asking him. I imagine at first he was kind of ignoring.
Oops, I got a bad connection.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I can't see anything. Oh, now I see Kalakantha. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so that point, and then also this culture of bringing something, like he's there, well, I have to bring a gift, even though she told him, we don't have anything in our cupboards. That's why you're so skinny and you're trembling from weakness and all. But just like so many lessons that will be unveiled as you continue your wonderful rendition of the story. So thank you.
Thank you. While holding one another's hands, Sudama and the Lord discussed their days at Sandipani Muni's schoolhouse years before. The Lord observed, "You're moral and you lead a godly life. Since you are not in saffron dress, then you must have a wife. Though you're involved in household duties, you remain aloof from sense desire and money-making. Most folks spend their youth pursuing such enjoyments, but your values have stayed high. You've taught the common people by example, as have I. Our school days were devoted, you recall, to the pursuit of learning from our guru, higher spiritual truth. A father is a guru and a priest is one as well, but one who gives transcendence is as good as God himself. Such gurus represent me. They say only what I say. By following such gurus, one sends misery away. To simply serve a valid guru pleases me much more than all the rites and penances the Brahmins so adore. Do you recall the day when we were living at our school and Sandipani Muni's wife sent us to gather fuel? When we entered the forest to find firewood, there arose an out-of-season thunderstorm that drenched us head to toe. The forest was so flooded that we couldn't even tell the high ground from the low ground. Then the sun went down as well. Unable to determine whether home was left or right, we wandered through incessant wind and rain throughout that night. Our guru understood our plight and went out with the dawn. He searched the woods until at last he found where we had gone. Compassionate at our distress, he said, "My dearest sons, the body is most dear to every soul. Look what you've done. For my sake, you have undergone such suffering and stress. A true disciple does what you have done and nothing less. You boys are first-class Brahmins. May you both be ever blessed. May all the Vedic mantras you have learned stay ever fresh." Lord Krishna went on reminiscing in this joyous way. We had such great adventures through our Gurukula days. A soul who takes a guru and then somehow makes him pleased fulfills the goal of human life and gains eternal peace. Sudama said, "O Lord, what goal could I have not achieved when I lived in the ashram of our guru and received the fortune of your company? Your form is truth itself. You demonstrate a righteous life by living it yourself." So in their conversation, which is so typical for old friends, they remember the pastimes of their youth, the things that they did and shared in their earlier days. And it's interesting to note here also how Sudama is in these mixed moods of friendship and awe and veneration. This is one of the characteristics of Krishna's intimate associates. They will vacillate from expressing philosophical truths to thinking of Krishna as their friend or their child or their lover. And this wavering of emotions is very nicely seen in the pastime where Krishna rescues his parents from Kamsa's jail after having killed Kamsa. He goes to the jail, and then there he finds his parents who've been hearing all the amazing things he's done. He's killed the elephant, Kuvalayapida. They killed Chanura and Mushtika, the wrestlers. Then they killed Kamsa himself. And all of these things convince them that their son is the supreme personality of Godhead. So when he comes in their cell, although he's been separated so many years, they can't even bring themselves to embrace him. Instead, they just offer their respects. So Krishna, standing before them, says, "Oh, you would have been such great parents had we had the opportunity to be with you." And speaking in this way, he invokes their parental affection, and then they're able to embrace him. So this shows how the philosophical foundation that we gain from reading Srimad Bhagavatam is the basis for our relationship with Krishna as it grows and matures. And this combination of knowledge and devotion is expressed by Sudama in his response to Krishna's reminiscence. Conversing with his childhood friend, Lord Krishna was quite pleased, for he adores the Brahmin chiefly when they're devotees. He also understood Sudama hid within his clothes a bundle with some rice that he was too ashamed to show. The Lord inquired, "Have you brought a gift from home for me? I greatly value any gift from saintly devotees. A cup of water makes me smile, though I could drink an ocean. A fruit or flower pleases me when offered in devotion." Despite this clear encouragement, Sudama was ashamed to give his gift to Krishna in this opulent domain. But Krishna knew Sudama's pure affection had no price, so he reached in Sudama's cape and snatched the hidden rice. The Lord exclaimed, "My friend, what are you hiding? It's a gift. This rice will please not only me, but all souls that exist." When one has pleased Lord Krishna, all creation can advance, as watering the root will nourish every leaf and branch. Lord Krishna ate a palmful of the rice and reached for more, but Queen Rukmini stopped his hand and quietly implored, "How will I share this treasure if you eat it all yourself? Besides, you're pleased already, which assures Sudama's wealth." Sudama then took food and drink and rested for the night, convinced that he had left this mortal world from sheer delight. The next day, with much honor from his friend, he left for home, too humble to have even asked for something of his own. Sudama thought, "Lord Krishna loves the Brahmins, that is clear. He held me to his chest, although my sins are quite severe. I am the poorest beggar, while my friend is God himself, replete with strength, detachment, wisdom, beauty, fame, and wealth. He loved me like a brother. There I was upon his bed, while Krishna bathed my feet and Queen Rukmini fanned my head. Though Krishna is the person all the gods and Brahmins praise, as if I were a god, he worshipped me in many ways. In heaven, hell, this planet, or in liberated states, the worship of Lord Krishna opens wide perfection's gates. Perceiving that if I were rich, I might grow proud and fall, Lord Krishna kindly didn't give me anything at all." Sudama reached his home site, but he could not understand how several soaring palaces now filled his patch of land, complete with gardens, courtyards, ponds with flocks of cooing birds, and well-dressed male and female servants waiting for his word. The palace servants welcomed him with musical reception. On learning he was back, his wife, ecstatic with affection, came dashing from the palace, dressed like Goddess Shri herself, emerging from a domicile of unimagined wealth. Sudama's chaste and loyal wife, her tears about to start, bowed low before her husband and then embraced him in her heart. Though he looked just the same, and she at once saw it was him, he barely recognized his wife adorned with precious gems. They walked in awe amidst diamond-studded pillars in their home, which boasted ivory bedsteads, golden couches, chairs, and thrones. The crystal walls had jeweled lamps and pearls strung overhead. Sudama calmly saw all this, and to himself he said, "A person of my," I'm just going to mention here, Sudama's meter changes, which often happens in the Bhagavatam, depending on who is speaking and in what set of circumstances, the meter will change to fit the mood. So here's another example. "A person of my destitute circumstance could only grow wealthy by Lord Krishna's glance. Since I didn't ask, he kept this from my sight, as clouds irrigate planted fields overnight. The Lord magnifies what his devotees bring and thinks of his blessings as trivial things. Though I only brought him a handful of rice, he transformed my hut to a God's paradise. The Lord doesn't make all of his servants this rich. If one is a novice, he could grow bewitched. So Krishna is cautious when giving rewards. I'll never forget my compassionate Lord. Sudama, fixed in wisdom, kept his vows and didn't fall. He never let his opulence bewilder him at all. Such saintly, gentle Brahmins are the Lord's own deities. What person could be higher than such perfect devotees? Though no one else can conquer him, Lord Krishna's servants do. Observing this, Sudama's heart was thoroughly subdued. He soon attained the Lord's abode and bid this world farewell. If you can grasp Lord Krishna's kindness, you'll go there as well. And the chapter ends with this Palashuti, this little blessing given by Shukadev to the readers. So there are many aspects of this pastime that are wonderful. I'd like to focus on two. First is the sense of the Brahmins and their rituals. So generally, Brahmins are known for their performance of religious rites and sacrifices. But in this case, it was Sudama's devotion that was very dear to Krishna. This reminds us of the pastime of when the Lord was younger. He sent the cowherd boys to beg from the Brahmins who were performing their yajna. And although there was ample food being sacrificed, and the boys pointed out that it was fine to feed children even in the course of it, the Brahmins had no interest and just ignored them. So then Krishna sent them to the Brahmins' wives, and they were so eager to hear this news that they brought Krishna all kinds of food. So in fact, they wanted to stay with Krishna and not go back to their husbands. But Krishna told them, just be patient and help your husbands in their duties, because this is the duty of a chaste wife. Even if their duties are inferior to what you might like to be doing in your devotional service. So the women dutifully returned, but the husbands, having seen this transformation in their wives and having seen how they handled the same opportunity that they had denied, condemned themselves and their rituals and failed to and cursed themselves for failing to appreciate Krishna's devotion as superior to their rituals. It's said that if one performs rituals but does not achieve love of God, then the rituals are useless. On the other hand, if one has love of God, what is the need for rituals? So in Sudama's case, we see this is a Brahmin, but he was attached to Lord Krishna and not the ordinary religious performances that are the responsibility of the Brahmins. So we have this same dynamic in our Sangha sometimes, that does spiritual advancement mean that we become more traditional, or that we're more accommodating of others so that they can become devotees? And this is a real source of tension and a question in the growth of the Krishna consciousness movement around the world. There are extremes on either side. In my experience, people coming to Krishna consciousness will find their own niche. Some people by nature are going to be very inclined towards learning the Shastras, memorizing verses, giving erudite classes, and performing elaborate rituals, such as yagyas and samskaras and so forth. Others will not be so inclined. In either case, the devotion is really the important measure. There's an interesting story in this regard. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me this story. When he was taking his second initiation from Srila Prabhupada in San Francisco, sometime around 1968, Jayananda Prabhu had already received his second initiation and had been given the Gayatri mantra, but he couldn't remember it. So he decided to go with Tamal Krishna Maharaj to see Prabhupada. and get a refresher. So Prabhupada accepted the request and he said, we'll start with you, Jayananda. So he sat Jayananda down in front of him and started going over the Gayatri mantra line by line. Om Bhur Bhavat. Now repeat it after me. Jayananda every time would struggle with it. So after half an hour, Prabhupada smiled and said, it is hopeless. But because you are sincere, whatever you say, Krishna will accept it. So Jayananda Prabhu was known for having the fastest Gayatri in ISKCON. So the point is that the rituals sometimes are stressed very heavily. This is the mark of our spiritual advancement. And indeed, Srila Prabhupada was criticized by some of his contemporaries in India for accommodating the needs of the new devotees in the West. The idea of having a brahmacharini ashram, for example, which in 1968, Srila Prabhupada ordered for all of the temples to establish. This was virtually unheard of in India. And yet in the West, it suited the time and the temperament of the audience to which he was preaching. So he did this. And later, when he received criticism for this, he said that it's impossible to impose the cultural values of one people upon another. So trying to do something impossible is niyamagraha, it's an over endeavor, and it causes fall down in devotional service. So instead, he accommodated very expertly, and people were able to come into Krishna consciousness without an intense cultural transformation. So if we open the doors wide for people and let them be themselves, then they'll find their own level of cultural adaptation. Some will be tremendously involved, others will not. But the devotion, as Sudama Brahman showed, is the actual important commodity. So this is one facet of the pastime. Would anyone like to discuss this a little more before I go on to the other that I wanted to go into more deeply? Is spiritual advancement defined by how much we acculturate to traditional Vedic norms?
Yes, Prabhu, I wanted to just make a comment on that point, and I think, like you mentioned, it is a struggle for us, and there are as many opinions as what Krishna consciousness means as there are devotees, really, in certain way, because Krishna consciousness means we have to do these 5 artis in a day, and you have to count the circles and all that. And then, I read a few months ago a very nice comment that Mahavishnu Maharaj had made. Mahavishnu Maharaj, who, the senior. He'd made many years ago before he left. And he said that we should never, ever, ever do anything ritualistic for Krishna. It should never be a ritual, because the word ritual implies a sort of mindlessness even, or a sort of something you just have to do because you have to do it. And some of us then we end up doing even japa as a ritual because we just have to do it. Whereas, the arti, which looks like a ritual, is really something that should be so infused with feeling and devotion and love. Lord, this is for your enjoyment. I'm turning these circles. May everything that's supposed to be evil befall you should befall me instead. I mean, that's such a sweet mood that's the mood of the arti. Counting of the circles is really a form of loving exchange. So there shouldn't even be a trace of what we call ritual, but they should be infused with spiritual. Where I heard one devotee says, the difference between spiritual and ritual is the Supreme Personality and his interest, SPI, and then otherwise you just get ritual, in the spiritual. So I think it's a very important part that it's the devotion that comes in play. When Jayananda Prabhu was driving his taxi, he was devotionally driving it, and chanting while driving and like that, right? So it's really all about that. Just want to make that point.
Yeah, very nice. Yes, you remind me. It's sometimes said there are a billion Hindus and a billion varieties of Hinduism. So we have a personalist movement. You know, Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a book distributor a loaded question in a large assembly of devotees. What service pleases you the most? How can we please you the most? And Prabhupada didn't take the bait. He said, loving Krishna. So how people become lovers of Krishna and reciprocate with Krishna is quite individual. Some people will really gravitate towards traditional practices. Some won't. It really is secondary. Thank you very much for that. Yes. But nothing should ever be a ritual, right? Otherwise, it is just what is that cause of fall down? Following the rules and regulations. Yes, niyamagraha, just for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement. Okay, any other comments on this facet? Okay, all right. So I also wanted to talk a bit then about the financial side of this pastime, which, as I mentioned, makes it very popular. Sudama is beloved because he received the material blessings, the external blessings of Lord Krishna, you could say. So first of all, let's examine Sudama's mood. He wasn't even thinking to go and ask Krishna for his for charity, but at his wife's urging, he went. And you notice that he did not ask Krishna for anything. If you're married, this is a big faux pas. You know, if your wife sends you out on an errand and you forget to do it, you better just turn around and go back out again. You know, don't even show up. But in Sudama's case, this is exactly what he did. He just really was so overwhelmed with Krishna's love and his reminiscence of their childhood days. He was so pleased and happy that it just didn't even cross his mind to ask and fulfill this errand he was on. So this is the point. Sudama had absolutely no aspiration for getting anything in exchange for his love and devotion. Now, we're living in a culture that is very much associating religion with prosperity. This is known in some biblical circles as the prosperity gospel, that if you're right with God, then you'll be wealthy. If you're having financial problems because you're not right with the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada was once asked by an English scholar, Sir Arnold Toynbee, what is the most important verse in Srimad Bhagavatam? And Prabhupada replied, a rather obscure verse, one that we don't often quote. It's from the second chapter of the first canto. Dharmasya hyapavargasya narta utaya upakalpate, nartasya dharmakantasya kamalobhaya hi smritaha. Spiritual life should never be performed for the purpose of economic gain. And in the course of life in devotional service, if one gets economic gain, one should never use it for sense gratification. So this is somewhat tied with the first point, because traditionally Brahmins should be supported. They should be cared for by society. They should never have to worry about their economic life, because they give something which is valued in society. They give spiritual knowledge. They're exemplary in their detachment, in their simplicity, in their character. Samadhamma tapa socham chantir arjavam evacha. Jnana vijnanam astikam brahma karma svabhavajam. These are the qualities by which the Brahmins work. They're honest, they're equipoised. So this doesn't square with the idea of being concerned with material economic development. And therefore, this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the classic sense, is lived by the true Brahmins. So in this Kali Yuga society, there's a different, this connection is so often made between money and religion. Just the opposite thing. there is a sense that the religious should be supported. The religious leaders should be supported. Interestingly, in America, there are 350,000 religious congregations. And the professionals who lead these congregations or work within them earn an average of $50,000 a year. This is the relatively modest income on average for everybody who works as a religious professional in this country. However, in ISKCON, we have virtually nobody who receives such compensation. I have had a career as a temple president for 25 years, and I managed to keep my family together by getting a modest stipend and a place to live. So I had to really earn money on the side so that I could feed my ISKCON habit. But the point is that Vairagya Vidya is inherent in our tradition, that money may or may not come, opulence may or may not come, but it really is not a product or is not a purpose or a goal of our devotion. Ideally, the priests, those who are leading the congregations, will be supported and appreciated and given all facility. But they actually must be true Brahmins. They must be like Sudama, willing to live with or without opulence. So as he's coming home, Sudama realizes, I forgot to ask. But I must have forgotten because Krishna must not have wanted me to have it. I am too much of a novice. And Krishna doesn't want his devotees to become overly enamored with material opulence. So with this, he was completely at peace in his meditation. And of course, when he arrived home, there was this unspeakable opulence. And yet yet Sudama was not affected by it. So it reminds me so much of Srila Prabhupada. He was living in poverty for many, many years, counting every paisa, doing everything himself. He had one casual follower who really wasn't helping him. And Srila Prabhupada managed to continue his devotion without the slightest interruption. In fact, he said those days in Vrindavan, where he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam and really living hand to mouth, he said those days were very happy days. He said, you cannot imagine how much ecstasy I was feeling there in Vrindavan. And he could have just stayed there. Nobody would have complained. Nobody would have said, oh, you're failing to meet your guru's order. Or he could have gotten to America and seen the incredible materialism and recognized his impoverished position and just gone back so easily. But his devotion never wavered, and it's remained the same even when Krishna sent him so much facility, men and money. This is the lesson from Sudama's pastime, that when we are mature in our devotional service, Krishna may send us millions of dollars, or he may not. It really doesn't matter, because what is important to us is our devotion, is our sadhana, is our sangha with other Vaishnavas. These are the things that really are meaningful to our heart. The great conqueror, Alexander the Great, contracted some disease as a fairly young man in his late 30s. And when he realized he was going to die, he gave his generals this instruction. After I die, I want you to put my body on a palanquin and have it carried by 6 physicians. I want my palms open and facing the sky with nothing in them. And I want that in front of the procession, there should be gold coins scattered to the crowd. So the general said, yes, we'll do whatever you like, but can you explain what is your purpose? He said, I want the physicians to carry me so that everyone can see that even though I had the finest physicians in the world, they could not stop my death. I want my palms open so that everyone can see, although I had conquered so much, more than anyone in history, I'm leaving this world with nothing. And I want the coins scattered in front so that everyone can see that all the wealth I have worked so hard to accumulate will be enjoyed by others. So this is the underlying approach of the devotee to wealth and opulence. We may have it or we may not, but we know that whatever we get, we should use it for Krishna and not a farthing for sense gratification. So when Sudama received this tremendous opulence from Krishna, it did not affect his renunciation or detachment in the least. So these two aspects of the story are two that are very meaningful to me. A beautiful pastime. I'd like to stop now and have further discussion if anyone would like to make some comments, other facets of the story. Any questions about the ones that I've selected for this discussion?
We have one from Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Kalakantha Das. Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, I have here on my lap the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. I went to my bedroom to bring it here because of your presentation. And it is somehow in harmony with what you just presented to us. It is Madhya Lila, chapter 5, which title is The Activities of Sakshi Gopal. So the text 24 is as follows. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas. And when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases. So you were just speaking about opulence, the relation between the devotee and opulence. And in the purport to this verse, we find Srila Prabhupada saying that the following, because the younger Brahmana served the older one, Lord Gopal agreed to become a witness of the marriage negotiation in order to maintain the prestige of both devotees. So I have a question, if I may. Prabhu, related to opulence being present or not in the life of a devotee, my question is as follows. Why is it that these happenings are so old and so rare to find? Why is it that we do not see contemporary devotees saying that, something similar to the pastime entitled Sakshi Gopal happened to me? Why is it that we don't see the deities speaking to the devotees in the ISKCON temples nowadays, in the present days? Why is it that these happenings, these pastimes are considered so exceptional and so rare?
Well, Krishna is not obliged. He reveals himself according to the surrender of the devotee. Ye yatam mam prapadyante tam stataivam bhajamyaham. So this young Brahmin had deep implicit faith in the reality of the deity. It was just so natural to him to go to the deity and ask him to come. You see? So that simple faith was so profound that the deity reciprocated, the Lord reciprocated in his deity form. So to answer your question, I can only say it is a question of our degree of faith. Srila Prabhupada said that his miracle was all of the devotees all over the world. And this is the miracle that we have access to. So is that a greater miracle than the deity walking? I don't know. Some people might say so. That people all over the world could be taking up Krishna consciousness by Srila Prabhupada's presence. How miraculous is that? Could I tell a quick story? This Tarun Kanti Ghosh, a gentleman who is a cabinet minister in Bengal, once came to Srila Prabhupada in Calcutta and said, I've just seen this amazing guru in South India, and he manifested an apple from thin air. I saw it with my own eyes. He was really impressed. Just whoop, and there was an apple. So Prabhupada began reflecting, and he said, when I was going to America, I just took my kartals and sat under a tree and began chanting Hare Krishna, and then young people started coming, and then we opened a temple, and we opened another temple, and now wherever I go in the world, any city, there is a big palatial house full of servants, American and European servants, and they're working without pay.
Yes, yes.
Temples, houses, servants, and in every temple, there are so many apples. So the miracle is, it happens when we really follow Prabhupada's lotus feet and we bring Krishna consciousness to others. That's the miracle that we can perceive and even take part in. Is that all right?
Oh, that is wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you for your extraordinary answer. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We have another question from Shri Radhika Mataji. Shri Radhika Mataji asks, we are not supposed to do anything ritually, yet in sadhana bhakti, before we actually develop true love for Krishna, we are told to do our practices at least as a duty, which implies some ritualisticness.
Yeah.
Also, is duty a sign of affection? How to reconcile these?
Yes. Yes, the initial stage of bhakti requires the devotion and practice, Vaidhi bhakti. So yes, we do have to approach the practice of bhakti with some guidelines. It's not that it's a free-for-all. But the purpose of those rules and regulations is to serve the greater rule and regulation of always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna. So there is a certain learning curve, but it's really not very steep as far as what we have to learn. 4 regulative principles, 16 rounds, a few bhajans, a few songs in the morning. So to the person who has no taste for Krishna consciousness, these things are just rituals. My father used to say to me, can you eat this? Can you eat this? Like am I allowed by my cult to eat this or eat that? You know, I tried to explain to him, Dad, I could eat whatever I want. This is just the things that I enjoy eating. So Vaidhi Bhakti gradually leads us to the stage of more personal expression in our devotion, spontaneous devotional service. So this seems like a very highly advanced stage, but we can see that even in our intermediate position, we get a taste for these things. We get a taste for japa. You know, we get a taste for doing arti for our deities. And that is natural because Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kabunoi Shravanadi Sudhi Chite Karya Udoy. Loving Krishna is dormant in everyone's heart, and it awakens by the process of hearing and chanting. So yes, we have to accept the regulative practices in the beginning, but after some time they'll be internalized so much that they won't seem like rituals in any way or something regulated. They'll just be an expression of joy. This is called a narta nivritti, where the unwanted bad habits fall away and we replace them with these very positive habits of sadhana and regulative principles. This is why Krishna calls them the regulative principles of freedom, a very small price to pay for this life of unbridled devotional ecstasy.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, we have some other questions and comments. Shankarshan Prabhu says, in reply to Vijay Krishna's question, there are many accounts of reciprocation between Lord Nrsimha deity in Mayapur and devotees there. And some rather miraculous accounts. In fact, there's websites and websites dedicated to this. So if you want to hear about those pastimes, there's videos about it. So even today in modern day ISKCON, the deities are in fact performing pastimes and interacting with devotees and the pujaris and so on. So it's definitely there.
Okay, yes, definitely. We just don't need to depend on them. Right? They may come, they may not. Like Krishna says in the 14th chapter of the Gita, that one who is not attached to illumination when it comes or hankers for it when it is absent is in the transcendental position.
Right. There's a saying that for one who has faith, no miracle is necessary. For one who doesn't have faith, no miracle is sufficient. Duryodhana found the Virat Rupa, and he still thought it was just a magic trick, cheap trick. Shara McGlynn, she has a question. Kalakantha Prabhu, where is the line between a grihastha working to take care of their family and working for too much personal gain? How do we know we are just doing our duty?
Shara, it is good to hear from you, my old English student and daughter of my good friend Panchatattva and Yovanananda Prabhus, who are just actually moving across the street from where we live. So we're very nice to hear from you. This is a perennial question for devotees in the Grihastha ashram. But the simple answer is Grihasthas have a primary duty to generate income. They're the only ashram of the 4 that generates income. So the rest of the system economically is depending on the Grihasthas being prosperous. So this is very similar to Arjuna's questions in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He wants to renounce, and his idea is to renounce his duty of fighting. But Krishna teaches him through the course of the Gita to do his duty, but with a different purpose. So it is with Grihasthas. Our duty is to earn and generate income, but we learn to do it for Krishna's pleasure. The responsibilities with Grihastha life are very, very demanding. I was a brahmachari for 10 years. I've been Grihastha for almost 40 years. And I can tell you that, yes, it is much more engaging. Grihastha life engages much more of your capacity. Because you have to meet these responsibilities. And as a result, it draws out things that I never knew I had within me. And I've seen that in many of my godbrothers and godsisters. So Grihasthas are called adhikari, or one who can perform. And the idea is that you can meet your responsibilities in this material world and yet remember Krishna, just like Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Krishna didn't tell him not to give up his fighting. He said, Mamanusmara yudhya cha, you learn to fight while thinking of me. And this is the Kurukshetra for the Grihasthas, to earn an income, maintain a family, raise Krishna conscious children. Externally, it might look like, well, this person is just making money for themselves, but they're actually making money for Krishna because they're offering everything to Krishna. Manasa deha geha yokichu mor arpimuntu apadi nandakishwar. Lord Krishna, Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays, today my house, my body, my family, my mind, everything in my possession I offer to you. And from this point forward, I am just the steward of your property. So this is how we balance the responsibilities of our ordinary life with our devotional service. Whatever Krishna sends us, we're offering to him. So this is done conscientiously by the devotee. There's a story Prabhupada told about, who was that joker? The jester?
Gopal Bhan.
Gopal Bhan, yes. So he's carrying a load of wheat from the field. And all of a sudden, a big gust of wind comes up and blows it in the sky. And before it falls to the ground, he raises his hand and says, Govinda Bhoga. I'm offering this to Krishna. So the point is that if we conscientiously live our lives like I'm doing this for Krishna, and it really doesn't matter, anything but being a butcher practically we can do for Krishna, then this allows us to live our lives on the transcendental platform, even though externally it may appear like we are ordinary people pursuing pounds, shillings, and pence. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Kalakantha Prabhu.
You're welcome.
We're moving to Alachua soon, so we look forward to seeing you there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Shara.
Yeah.
Same here. Haribol.
Haribol.
Okay.
Thank you. And with that, we are unfortunately out of time. But thank you, dear devotees, for staying with us. And thank you, Kalakantha Prabhu, for giving us your valuable time, an incredible dose of nectar that will carry with us forever. And it was very beautifully done. I love poetic renditions, especially with so much feeling and emotion. It really was very nourishing to the heart. So thank you once again. And we hope that we'll be able to have you again on this platform in the future. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
yeah, so I'll be opening up the channel for everybody to say a quick Haribol, just make a couple of announcements for upcoming speakers. It shouldn't take more than a minute. So, of course, today we had Kalakantha Prabhu, the Sudama story. And, of course, please check out his books. Prabhu's books are available on Amazon. If you want, you can just look for the author, Carl E. Woodham. Some of these books are under that legal name. So if you can make a note of that on Amazon, you can purchase this book. It's a really nice book, any of these. So you can get those. And our upcoming speakers, so on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we have His Holiness Jai Advaita Swami Maharaj, who is the main anchor of our channel. We are exploring the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very interactive exploration, so you're all welcome to join us at 8 p.m. on those 3 days of the week. Today we had Kalakantha Prabhu. On Saturday morning, day after tomorrow, at 11 a.m., we have a special presentation by His Holiness Satsvarup Das Goswami Maharaj on poetry and meditation. So this nectar of poetry continues on Saturday. And then on Sunday evening, we have Gaur Kumar Prabhu, who will be speaking on a very nice topic, how did Arjuna succeed? So please join us for the poetry readings and meditations on Saturday morning, 11 a.m., and then we have the Sunday program. So thank you all very much for joining this evening. I'm just going to allow everyone to unmute. And if you can unmute yourself and you can just say a quick Haribol to Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Haribol, Prabhu.
Kalakantha Prabhu.
Kalakantha Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare
Dandavat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you all.
Hare Krishna.
This evening.
Krishna, thank you.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
So nice class. Hare Krishna.
Krishna,
All
thank you,
right, thank you.
Kalakantha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Haribol Maharaj,
Prabhuji.
thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Uh,